Hello again and welcome to another episode of I Want to Talk About This Album. And today I'm going to talk about an album by a band that if the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old Dan Bowski, maybe even into the 20s Dan Bowski had known that I was going to talk about today, would be very embarrassed, maybe ashamed, and a lot of eye rolling at the 55-year-old Dan Bowski in 2025 talking about this. And this is it's by a band called Max Webster, and the album is, as you can see, it's called A Million Vacations. It's not a guy. Max Webster's not a guy. It is a band. And this is a band, you can add this to the list of bands like Bon Scott era AC/DC, Neil Young for sure, Led Zeppelin, The Doors, all those 60s, 70s, let's say 70s bands that I hated when I was that age, when I was 11, 12, up to, like I said, in my 20s. I just thought, this is crap. This is music for old people. This is the music that, like when I was in grade 9 or 9th grade, as Americans say, that the kids in grade 12 or the 12th grade were listening to, because there's a big difference between grade 9 and grade 12. And I just hated it. I liked what I considered to be new music. I liked Motley Crue and Metallica a little bit later, maybe a year or two later, Iron Maiden. That's the kind of music that I liked, not Max Webster. Now, this episode might set a new record for the absolute lowest. I might hit rock bottom with this episode. I don't think too many people leave a comment, really. I'm not saying this just to encourage engagement, but really leave a comment if you know about Max Webster. I feel like most people that watch these videos, and I know it's not too many, but it's mostly Mexicans and Americans. And those people don't know Max Webster. I think the only ones who watch this channel with at least some degree of frequency, and kind of the reason why I'm doing this episode finally today, Max Webster, is there's a guy, I don't know if he's a newcomer to the channel. His name is John Patterson. Hello, John, if you're watching. He would know Max Webster because he recently commented on my Peter Criss video, Out of Control, saying that he grew up in Toronto like I did and lived in the Toronto area also like I did, and talked about listening to Q107, the great rock radio station, and Chum FM, another, at least in the early and mid 80s, was a great rock radio station before they, I think, became easy listening. So this was it, a little bit, I was going to do this at some point, but a little bit inspired by John Patterson. Oh, Dallas for sure is Max Webster. I don't know if he likes him or not. I've never talked about Max Webster with Dallas. Who else? My friend Brian Jones, Bones Incorporated. He undoubtedly knows Max Webster. I don't know if he likes him or not. I don't get too many Canadian viewers. Maybe that needs to change. Maybe Max Webster will bring some Canucks in. So Max Webster, let me tell you, since this is the first time I've talked about them, I will go with my history, which I pretty much just covered. I hated Max Webster. I thought they sucked. I just didn't like them. They were old guy music. And some Americans might know Max Webster through a guy called Kim Mitchell. Now, here's the record. Here's Max Webster, A Million Vacations, which is what I'm going to talk about, or which I am talking about. And it came out in 1979, and there was a guy in Max Webster. His name was Kim Mitchell. And he went on later in 83, 84, and I hated Kim Mitchell too in the 80s when I was a raging metalhead as a teenager. Kim Mitchell was just like classic rock. I really didn't. If you're American, you may know Go for Soda, Patio Lanterns, and what else did he have? I can't remember. He had a lot of songs that were always on the radio. Didn't like them then. I have to say I have a new, and before I'll give you a little spoiler alert. If you don't want to watch the rest of the episode, but you want to know what I think about this album, I really, really like this album. I was surprised how much I liked it. Now, the reason I'm talking about it today, before I get to that, my history with Max Webster, I got to go back. They played at my high school. I went to high school, and I grew up at that time in Toronto and Scarborough, and they played at my high school. This was before I went there, some years before I went. But that's kind of my high school's claim to fame, that Max Webster played there. Also, Bare Naked Ladies. I'm sure a lot of you know Bare Naked Ladies, who were actually, a couple of them, the brothers, Creegans, were good friends of mine from Bare Naked Ladies during high school. Jim and Andrew were good friends of mine. And Jim Moore, he was a little bit older. He was in my grade. Andrew was a year or two or grade or two behind. Their older brother John was good friends with my sister. He went to my sister's wedding. That was the last time I saw any of the Cregan brothers. It was at my sister's wedding. And so that's my concert history. I never saw Max Webster. Why would I? Because I thought they sucked. But man, I have a new appreciation for them. I think now, being away from Canada for 19 years now, I've been in Mexico for 19 years, which means I've been away from Canadian radio for 19 years, which really, really messed me up mentally. There's another band that I'm going to talk about at some point. And the album that I'm going to talk about at some point, I think might be the biggest selling record in Canadian history by a Canadian band. I'm not sure about that. If you're Canadian, you probably know, or you have a very good guess of what it could be. I'm not sure. But you know, they had this rule in Canada, and they still have it, called CanCon, which is Canadian content, which stipulated that anything that appeared on a Canadian broadcast, whether it was, and it's different now because of streaming and everything, and you know, cable television, satellite radio, everything is different now. But radio stations used to have to play a certain percentage of Canadian artists. Now that was, you know, some very obvious Canadian bands like Max Webster clearly qualified as Canadian, Rush, Bare Naked Ladies. But then there were some other ones, maybe if it was written by a Canadian or co-written, I think it got credit towards the percentage. And I felt like there was a lot of crap that was played on the radio that was only played on the radio because it was Canadian and it fit into this Canadian content. Similar to everybody now loves to, Americans, they love to complain. I feel like I can talk shit about Americans now because none of them are watching. But you know, they love, a portion of them, you know who they are. They like to complain about these, they call them DEI hires, people that they feel didn't necessarily deserve the job that they got, so they don't like it. Well, that's kind of how I felt towards Canadian content. I'm not sure if that was a good analogy, but I felt like that Canadian music was being forced upon me, thrust upon me, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the music, and I didn't like, I was a little bit of a rebellious guy. That really, really turned me off of a lot of Canadian music, and a lot of my friends too, especially metal bands, because there were no real Canadian metal bands. There were the more extreme ones, Exciter, Sacrifice, Razor. They weren't going to get played on the radio regardless of where they were from. But there were no real Canadian. Svengali, I Mother Earth, maybe. I loved I Mother Earth. But anyway, so Max Webster, it was just not for me. And so I don't really have any history with Max Webster, but I do, going back to my what I started a couple of minutes ago, I always go all over the place. Being away from that and not hearing, all these Canadian songs countless times on the radio every day for decades, having been away from that for 19 years now, it's made me appreciate them more, that they're not being, pushed down my throat. And I have a new appreciation for it. So over the last couple of years, I've downloaded some, Max Webster and some other songs that I didn't like back then, but I let's say it ranged from appreciate to love them now, including a bunch of Max Webster songs. And I've come to really, really recently really enjoy Max Webster. Something came up, again, part of the motivation for doing this. Some time ago, I was watching something on YouTube, and it recommends things for you. Apparently, they don't recommend my videos to other people, but they do recommend some things. I saw a video for a song called, it was kind of like one of these two songs into one. It was called, by Max Webster, called Check / I think it was called Drive and Desire. And it came up in my feed, and I watched it. I thought, man, Max Webster is really, really good band. I need to get into them. So I downloaded A Million Vacations, and then I ended up buying it from Discogs for a pretty decent price. It came all the way from Germany. I think it was only about $30 US, including the shipping, all the way from Germany. I got this cool, and a true poser move, I got this Max Webster t-shirt, so I could wear it just for the video, never probably to be worn again. But man, I got to give Max Webster credit. They're a much, much better band, at least from what I've heard, than what I thought. I think they only have 5 albums. They had the debut, which was, I think, just called Max Webster. I don't know the order. High Class and Borrowed Shoes, Universal Juveniles, A Million Vacations. Maybe they only had 4 or 5 albums. I don't know. And then they dissolved, and Kim Mitchell became a solo artist. Kim Mitchell also in the last several years that I lived in Toronto or in Canada, he was a DJ. Kind of, this is things going full circle. Kim Mitchell, who got a lot of radio play on classic rock radio, including Q107, he became the DJ. He was the afternoon DJ. I think they call it the drive time or the something like that. Driving hour DJ. Kim Mitchell was on there, and I always thought it was strange that he was introducing his own songs, either Kim Mitchell songs or Max Webster songs. So that's my my history with Max Webster, and I really like this album. I think it's quite to very good as the tracks go. And I will go through it now. Of course, I do need, and I had never listened to this whole album until today. I took it out for a walk today and then listened to it outside on my balcony, as I always do, to make some notes. And it takes me back. It makes me long for a simpler time when albums were 10 songs, 8, 9, maybe 10 songs, maybe 11, and they were, 35, 40 minutes. This album, I guess, is right around there, 40 minutes. And you listen to side 1, you listen to side 2, and you're satisfied. Maybe you even want more instead of listening to an album that's 65 to 79 minutes, and by the time you're finished, you're tired of it. You don't want to listen to it again. So this is a really good album from 1979. So here it is again. And let me show the record first. So as I said, this came from Germany, and it is a German version. Now maybe you vinyl experts that seem to hold your nose up in the air. What do you think of this condition? This was rated on Discogs as near mint, I think it was. And I'm not complaining. It looks in excellent shape. I think a little bit of a discoloration on this side, and maybe a little bit at the top too. Vinyl experts, chime in. Is this near mint? They rate it by how the media is and also how the packaging is. It's fine for me. And very cool packaging on here too. So it's called A Million Vacations. And the lyrics are written or put on postcards, which I think is pretty cool. So each lyric is meant to be a postcard. And there they are there too. And this was co-written by this guy. This guy is called Pi Dubois. I've known about this guy for years and years. He was a famous Canadian songwriter. He helped Max Webster. I think he worked with Rush too. And I think he worked with Kim Mitchell later too. He's in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Pi Dubois is cool name. I just thought that was a cool name, Pi Dubois. Dubois. Maybe Americans would say Du Bois. I'm not sure. So there on the record. The record looks in excellent shape, and it's on Capitol Records. It looks like, I would even say almost brand new. I agree with that. The record for sure is mint to near mint. It's fantastic. The Germans really take care of their stuff, just like the Japanese, which is not surprising on either count. So I will put this back, and I'll put it back later. So the first song, and how did I decide which Max Webster album I was going to buy? I thought of the songs that I know that have been played on Canadian rock radio for decades, and then I looked at their albums. This one had the most songs I recognized and knew. Starting with the first one. The first one is called Paradise Skies. I'm going to say this 3 times. I hated it then. I love it now. Man, Paradise Skies is a great song. I was just so tired of it in let's say from 1980, I guess, when I started really listening to the radio. Through the 80s, this song probably was played every day. I largely didn't pay attention to it, but again, in recent years, when I've gone back and rediscovered it and listening to it by choice as opposed to being forced to listen to it in the radio or at work because somebody's playing it, I think it's great. Happiness is, God, I can't sing it. Happiness is beginning to ride from the streets into paradise skies. Ooh. And it's Kim Mitchell singing that song. Max Webster had at least three lead singers here. They're like the Canadian Beatles. And they also got, of course, compared to Rush, because they're Canadian, so there's that parallel. And I never thought at all that they sounded like Rush. When I listened to this album today, the drums do sound, to me, it sounds like it could be Neil Peart or Peart playing the drums. But Paradise Skies is a great song. And by the way, this album was also recorded at Phase One Studios in Scarborough, where I grew up in that time. Next is, I guess it's called Charmonium, I guess it's called. I had never heard this song before. immediately in the first seconds, I thought, this really sounds like 70s Styx. It's very keyboard happy, bright, bouncy. You know, Max Webster is a classic rock band, and this sounds exactly how you would expect a band of this era to sound. Yeah, Styx a little bit, I mean, not pop, but just the keyboards make it sound very big and bright and kind of bouncy. This, the vocals on this are a guy called, not a guy called, he's in Max Webster, called Terry Watkinson. He's a keyboard player, but he also sings lead vocals on Charmonium. And I thought it was a pretty good song. Next is Night Flights. This is one that, by song title, I didn't recognize it. And then as soon as I heard it, I thought, oh man, I totally know this song. This is another Max Webster radio staple. Maybe not as much as Paradise Skies or a couple of the other ones, or Diamonds, Diamonds. I love that song, Diamonds, Diamonds, which is from High Class and Borrowed Shoes. She comes across like diamonds, diamonds. She comes into focus, focus. I love Diamonds, Diamonds, but that's on a different album. So Night Flights on a music ship, and night flights on a midnight jet stream. I didn't realize that, I guess obviously I knew that was Max Webster, and I knew the song title, Night Flights. I was totally clueless until I heard this, and I was listening. I thought, man, this is another classic Canadian rock song. That's a great song too. I like it so much more now than I did as a teenager. Next is Sun Voices. This one, very synthesizer heavy, not much in the way of guitars or rock. It's a little bit mellow. The song is so-so, not the best. And then the next song after Sun Voices is Moon Voices, and it's an instrumental. It kind of carries over from Sun Voices, and I'm not the biggest fan of instrumentals. This song is so-so, not even that good. And then on side 2, the first song would be A Million Vacations, the title track. Another one, the second of 3 that I'm going to say, just like Paradise Skies, that I hated at the time. Love it now. This is a third singer, lead singer, a guy called Gary McCracken. He's the drummer, and he also lends his lead vocal talents to A Million Vacations. Friday, Friday is a good time to shine. Night sea journeys, journeys to unwind. Love that song. Except there's one thing and I hate about it. Beep, beep. There's a horn in this song. I mean a horn, not a horn like that they play, but a horn honking. And I talked about this when I talked about Paul McCartney a couple months ago. Drive My Car, how the radio stations used to always use the beep, 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 beep. Yeah, when they had traffic. And I didn't like then, and I don't like now that there's a honking horn in the title track, A Million Vacations. Other than that, it's a great, great song. I think it's just not a nice sound to hear a car horn honking. Get rid of that. But it's an excellent song, A Million Vacations. Next is Look Out. This is similar to Charmonium, very Styx-sounding, bright, lots of keyboards, just like real 70s keyboard rock. I like that song, Look Out. Next is Let Go the Line. This is the third of 3 that I hated then, love it now. This is Terry Watkinson again, who also sang Charmonium. This is a huge, huge radio song. Let Go the Line. It's kind of mellow, not ballad at all, but a little bit of a quieter song. It's not a rock song like Million Vacations or Paradise Skies. I see you there in your satin shirt. I see you there in your satin shirt. Unfocused eyes on the ceiling. I see you there in your satin shirt. Unfocused eyes on the ceiling. Man, oh man, I don't know how I hated this crap back then, but I do love it now. All I know is that tonight I might let go the line. Let go the line. Excellent song, love it. And I kind of knew at least, if not the lyrics, the melodies and the lyrics of the chorus at least, because they were played all the time. Next song is maybe the most surprising song on the album, and maybe my favorite of the songs that I hadn't heard before. This is called Rascal Hootie, and believe it or not, there's a little bit of, I would say, this song is a little bit punky, especially the first 30 seconds or a minute. It's kind of up, it's not kind of, it is very up-tempo. To me, it has kind of a punky sound. Now, this is credited as a songwriter to Kim Mitchell, but it's definitely not Kim Mitchell singing. There is no credit in the album to who sings. The credits list Gary McCracken as lead vocals on Million Vacations, Terry Watkinson lead vocals on Let Go of the Line and Charmonium, but it doesn't say who sings Rascal Hootie. I don't know who it is. It's definitely not Kim Mitchell. I'm not maybe familiar enough with Gary McCracken or Terry Watkinson to identify them. I don't know, but it's a good song. I really like that song. I was surprised. Yeah, I like that song a lot. And then the last song was a strange title of this song. It's called Research, and then in parentheses, and you know how I feel about parentheses song titles, At Beach Resorts. So the song is Research at Beach Resorts. And the song was pretty good. And it's kind of, it starts with some crowd noise. Now, it's not credited as being a live song. It doesn't say recorded live at wherever arena or hall or anything like that. So I think it's maybe one of these fake live songs they recorded in the studio and then added crowd noise to make it seem live, like Motley Crue did with Jailhouse Rock on Girls, Girls, Girls. But good song. Now I have to say the reason, or what I thought was cool about this song, there are a couple of cool shout outs that bring me back to my teenage years. They talk about Wasaga Beach. Yes, we do have beaches in Canada. They're lake beaches, but there are beaches nonetheless. Wasaga Beach was a place that I used to go. Not my number one beach destination in Ontario, but I did spend some time at Wasaga Beach. But in the postcard, they say a place that I did spend a lot of time in that era, Grand Bend. It says in the postcard, it says Dear Grand Bend, and I have a lot of good memories Grand Bend when I was 10 to 18 years old. I think the last time I went there was like 96 or something. I was around 26. Grand Bend was my favorite beach in Canada. What a funny thing to say. That's like saying, I don't know, what's that like? I can't think of a comparison. Strange thing to say. But yeah, Grand Bend. So I like that. I like the name checks of these beaches in Ontario. And then I especially liked one of the lyrics in the song is, and I had to write this down. I'd never heard this song before. Maybe we just need some perspiration because we're frostbitten Canadian boys. And maybe this is why Max Webster and another band, the band that I mentioned earlier, the Canadian band I'm going to talk about, maybe that was why Americans didn't like them. I think Americans are kind of myopic. They don't really like things from outside their own country, or they're a little bit maybe unwilling to accept things. And maybe Max Webster was a little bit too Canadian for them in their lyrics, thinking about Canadian beaches and frostbitten Canadian boys. I don't know. But that was the last song. That was 10. And what a surprising album this was. I don't know how much I'm going to dig into Max Webster's discography. Maybe a little bit anyway. High Class and Borrowed Shoes. I think I would like that one too. That had Gravity and Diamonds that I mentioned earlier. And I think the title track. But I do like Max Webster. I don't know why they're called Max Webster. I have no idea. I didn't know then. Or maybe I did, but I don't remember. But I like it. By the way, that's what they look like. The fellas in Max Webster. And that's what the album looks like. And it's Max Webster. Thank you for watching. This is called The Mail-In Vacations.